Welcome to The Money Factor, our program that focuses on business and consumer issues as well as personal finance topics. I'm Richard Naylor, your host. Each week, we welcome local guests to shed light on a wide range of money-related factors. Today, we'll consider a major area of our economy, real estate. How is the downturn affecting the Capital District, and how should buyers and sellers modify their strategy? Today's guest is Miguel Berger of Tech Valley Homes Real Estate. Let's join him and get started. Miguel, thanks for being on the show.
You're more than welcome.
We have a hot topic to discuss. I've been reading in the paper all these scary headlines. My house is going to be worthless.
It's all is perception. I mean, we're talking about national news instead of local news. We're talking about bubbles and implosions, explosions, wherever. I think in the last 3 years we've seen real estate values increase quite a bit, but we have caught up with the rest of the country. Right now we're seeing, my prediction is in the next few years we're going to see what I call a shift in the market, more normal appreciation, more of a normal market. And anytime you have appreciation of your home over inflation, you're ahead of the curve. You're living there for free.
So we hear about percentages a lot, and we had been hearing about double-digit increases, which of course can't be sustained. But the last news I heard was that the prices were still rising. However, the sales have dropped somewhat below last year at this time.
That, in real estate, you cannot look at things on a global basis. You have to look at a localized basis. More so in this area, you have to look neighborhood by neighborhood. There are certain neighborhoods that they are doing better than others. Still, we're all doing well. My company, for example, we're up 25% over last year in our production.
Wow.
So is the market dropping? Is the market going bad? No, I think it's a matter of, we've seen a very fast market. Now things are becoming more normal. I've been doing this for 22 years, and to be honest with you, the last 3 years haven't been fun. It's hard to do your job.
Really?
When you have a house that goes on the market, you're working with a buyer, within hours you have to put an offer, make a decision, and there's 10 other people who want the house. What kind of a job can I do? I mean, just tell you, go as high as you can and wish for the best.
Right. So, right, whatever you can afford.
Yeah, and that might, I mean, I've seen houses go over 15, 20% over the asking price. Is it normal? Is it logical? I don't know. I mean, it's whatever anybody's willing to pay. But as a broker, I prefer to be, my job is to educate the consumer. I mean, it might be a seller or a buyer, doesn't really matter. How can I educate you if we look at a house in half an hour and you have to make a decision within an hour? There's no way you can digest the whole thing. I mean, the big joke is always people took longer to buy a car than to buy a house.
And that's not a good thing.
No, I don't think so. People make rush decisions, then there is what we call buyer's remorse. It is a major issue. So I'm happy to say the market is not imploding or bubbles. It's just shifting to a more of a normal market.
So given that, it sounds like we can go back to some of the normal principles that people have followed in buying a house, get an inspection and all of those things.
Well, all those things still were part of the contracts, but as a seller, if you give me a hard time, I don't have to deal with you because there's buyer A, B, C, D behind you, you know.
Okay.
So if you don't buy it, there's going to be another 5 buyers that will buy the house.
So how would the strategy today change from what it was when things were a little crazy?
Right now, you can take your time, really decide is this the right home for you. As a buyer, you should be able to see more than one home before you make a decision. Take your time, take a breather, and make sure that this is the biggest investment you're going to ever make in your life. So, should you make a decision in half an hour, or should you take your time to make the right decision? As a buyer right now, you have we can provide you with more information. You can study it and make the right decisions.
Can you give any advice to somebody who's buying? What kind of an offer to make these days? Should it be a lower offer than they're offering, or has it come more into line?
You have everything. You have homes that people that still think that it's 2005 and their house has appreciated since then 25%. Listen to your broker. That's the best advice I can give you. As a broker, my job is to educate you, give you the facts, then you make a decision. to lowball a house because that's what the way it's always been is the wrong approach. If you find the right value on a home, you should be able to identify that by yourself, because after seeing 3-4 homes in the same area, the same kind of a home, you should be able to say, this is a good value. So if you have a home that is priced correctly, buy it. Don't fool around.
And so, reasoning backwards, if you really don't know what that house is worth, you haven't done
Your homework.
your homework.
That's
Okay.
real estate 101.
Right. Now, how have things changed for sellers?
Sellers should be listening to their brokers, to the professionals. Going back a little bit, in the last 3 years, we have grown. Our profession has grown. Usually, we run around 1,500 agents in this area. Right now, we're up to, I believe, it's 3,200. So there is people that have gotten the business in the last 3 years because it's been easy. Was order taking. Now, things to choose on a broker. Are you a full-time broker? Are you a full-time agent? Not are you doing these Saturdays and Sundays? This is your livelihood. That's number one, the most important part. How long you've been in the business? Do you really have experience to know what you're talking about?
Right.
And those are the key questions to ask. If I go to a home and I tell you your home is worth $200,000, and you tell me, well, I want $250,000, my job is to walk away. If you don't want to reason, because as brokers we don't make money until the closing.
Right.
And actually it costs us money to put a home on the market. I mean, we spend money in advertising, virtual tours, internet exposure, everything else. So it costs me money. I invest in your home, and only I get a return if I get the job done. You should always get 2 opinions as a minimum. Call 2 separate brokers.
Okay.
And get 2 opinions, because it's not a black and white business. It's very grayish, and we can go up or down within 5%, 5 to 10%, and that's reasonable. Anything higher than that, I think you should check what's wrong with the picture.
Right.
If there's a huge discrepancy between the 2 brokers, get a third opinion.
And I suppose you can look in the neighborhood and see what other things have sold and what
Well,
those
that's
are
what the
worth.
broker is supposed to provide you, the
Okay.
information that should come in. We have all the same information. I mean, we have all access to the MLS. The question is how we interpret that information.
Right.
You know, when you're talking statistics can go either way. As we were talking before, what the papers are saying, this is pure statistics, and you can always manipulate numbers.
Right.
So let's be very careful when you choose a broker. Maybe call somebody and get a recommendation. Ask the broker to give you names of people that you can call for background check. I mean, when you go to a doctor with a lawyer, you try to find the best specialist. It's just the same thing should be in real estate. You should find the specialist.
I like the analogy because while you're not going to die because of the house,
You
your
can lose a lot
future
of money.
could be really imperiled.
You can lose a lot of money. It's the biggest investment you are ever going to make.
We could look at some more, I guess, more specific questions as well as the big questions, but if you think of anything big that we're leaving out,
Sure,
just let me know.
not a problem.
What about inspecting a home you're buying? How do you choose someone to inspect your home?
Again, a real estate broker should give you 3 names.
Okay.
Anytime somebody gives you 1 name and they tell you this is the person to talk to, I will be wary of that. Our job is to give you, as a minimum, 3 names, and get an inspector that is a professional. Don't get your friend, your cousin, whatever, because there's a lot of people that think they know a lot about real estate. It's the same thing. Get, again, a professional, somebody that has been doing this for long enough, knows what they're talking about. And an inspection is like going for a general overview of the house. If there is a question about a furnace, the electrical panel, get a specialist, get the electrician to come in, get the furnace person to come in. If you're inspecting a
So
pool.
follow up on things.
Absolutely. I mean, as part of the inspection contingency on a home, you should make sure that if there is a question that comes out during this general overview, you get a specialist, a professional to go and see that particular issue. I will always get somebody that does a general inspection. As part of that, I will get a separate person to do a termite inspection. And also, you should always get a radon inspection done in the house.
Okay.
If there is a pool, you should have the pool company come in and make sure everything is working properly.
I want to back up just a step because I remembered a question that I had. What is a buyer's agent as opposed to a broker?
Well, there is a seller's agent and a buyer's agent.
Okay.
It's who represents who. As a buyer's agent, my job is to get best deal possible for the buyer. As a seller's agent, I'm supposed to represent the seller. So everybody should actually have their own representation. When somebody tells you, I can represent both, I will question it. You cannot serve two masters.
Right.
It happens that within the same company, there was two separate agents representing the two separate parties, and that's fine. But always we have to treat people fairly and with integrity. I mean, that's the number one issue, no matter who you represent. I cannot lie to you, even if I'm representing the other party. But as a buyer's agent, I can advise you on what to offer. If I have information about the situation, I can pass it along to you.
Right.
As a sales agent, my job is to make sure that I can get you the extra, whatever it might be. So the real estate business has always been an adversary business, and our job as brokers is make sure that at the end of the day, at the closing, everybody's happy. As
a win-win, right.
As a seller, you got what you needed. As a buyer, you got what you wanted, and nobody feels that they were taking advantage. And that's the key thing. And sometimes it's difficult to do that, but I think if you're a fair person and you are able to explain to people what it is, let's say we have a home. I'm representing the buyer, the other agent is representing the seller, so I'm a buyer's agent. There is a structural issue. You know, you're buying a home that is 50, 60 years old.
Okay.
There is no perfect house out there. At least in 22 years I've been in the business, I haven't found it. So now, how picky can we get on things? I mean, a home, always you have to put aside maintenance for the home. I mean, on an ongoing basis. Things break, you know, things go wrong. So do you really have to negotiate to the bottom line, or can you negotiate at a happy medium?
Right.
If you're buying a new home, you know you're buying a new home. So in the next 5, 10 years, you might not have to put any money. If you're buying a home that is 50 years old, you should expect, and your agent should educate you on what you're looking for. So don't expect to have a house that is 100%, because there is no such a thing.
And you're probably going to look at some renovation as well.
Of course, I mean, might be the kitchen, might be the bathroom, might be updating the electrical, and all those things you should be known up front. Unless, you know, there's some major issues, and that you will find out during the structural or the termite or the radon. Those are things that you really cannot see. But if you can see that the house is on fuses when you go and look at it, well, you should expect that it's going to cost you, and you should take that into consideration when you make your offer.
Right, so don't reject it, but count it in the price.
You know, and explain to the seller why your offer is such.
Okay.
Or if the house is priced accordingly. I mean, there's so many variables, and that's where we come in as an educator.
I had a conversation with a neighbor once who wondered why somebody didn't have a sign in their yard. Do you recommend putting a sign, or do you think that it's really a bad idea not to have a sign?
Well, I always use this analogy when a seller tells me, I don't want a sign in front of my yard. I go, would you expect me to swim with a hand behind my back? Do you really want to sell the house? I mean, most of the time people don't want a sign in their yard is because they don't want the neighbors, quote unquote, to know. Well, if I'm doing my job correctly, everybody in the world should know that your house is for sale. So that's a telltale sign that somebody might not be 100% serious about selling their home. Most serious sellers will let us do whatever it takes. A sign is part of it. Open houses, depends on the house. I mean, some houses don't make sense to have an open house that's on the Sundays, just because it's not appropriate. Might be because of price range.
So you wouldn't necessarily have an open house if it was an upscale house?
Yeah, because you have to see who your market is. The higher the price, the smaller the market. So do we really need an open house or not?
Because now more people who are not interested and can't afford it are going to be wanting to see what's in that house.
Right. So I mean, we get a lot of people. So I mean, but a sign is always a good idea. I mean, I will strongly recommend anybody that is serious about selling their home, it's one more avenue. What happens is, as a buyer, if you're looking for a neighborhood, you're going to drive around the neighborhood.
Right.
You see the sign, you're going to call. Maybe you cannot afford it, but at least
you won't know until you
call.
Right.
So the sign is always very important to me.
We could go into curb appeal, I think. That would be a next nice step.
Yeah,
I mean, it seems like a good thing.
it is a great thing. We always tell people, make your house smile. I mean, it starts from the outside. If you drive by a house, I mean, first of all, people drive by homes before they want to see them. And doesn't look good, you're already turned off. I mean, you start from the outside, you make sure everything looks clean, you make sure that the bicycles are in the garage or on the side, the garbage cans are not hanging out in the house.
Right.
If there's paint peeling, you should paint it before. A little landscaping goes 100 miles.
Right.
So, and again, depends on the house. You want to make it look better than the rest of the neighborhood, or equally as good. But you never want your home to look as a distressed sale.
Can a house inside, I think most people have heard that it shouldn't look cluttered. You don't want the kids' paintings on the refrigerator and things like that. But how sparse can it be? Can it be too sparse?
Well, I always tell people you have to still live in the house.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, some homes need to be decluttered. We usually tell people in a nice way. Not everybody agrees with us, but if you walk into a home, and I moved from a smaller house to a bigger house, and the reason I was moving is my house, we outgrew the house. Well, we moved half the house into a storage unit before we put our house on the market because we outgrew the house.
Uh-huh.
So you open the closets and, you know, the toys come out, and you open the toy chest, and you know. So we moved half the house actually into storage. So it wasn't sparse, but looked comfortable.
I think that's good advice. You might need to rent some space because people want to look at the basement as well and the attic and
they want to open closets and see how deep they are. If you open a closet and things come tumbling on you, it's not a good thing.
No. What about pre-qualification? I guess that's something that goes kind of obvious.
That's an absolute.
Yeah.
We do not talk to people unless they are pre-qualified or pre-approved. In the old days, talking 15 years ago, I sound old. In the old days, we used to, as agents, sit down with the people with our forms and qualify them. There's so many programs for financing out there that we send them to a bank or a mortgage broker or somebody, and we get a letter from the bank and say, you know, can you make sure this person is pre-qualified or pre-approved? And I will touch on the difference between pre-qualified and pre-approved. There is huge differences. But we will not consider any offer unless we have something from the bank, from a reputable bank. There's a lot of banks out there, mortgage, internet companies, so we were very careful to make sure that if we put a deal together, it's going to close. Now, the difference between pre-qualified and pre-approved is it's like black and white. Pre-qualified means you sat down with somebody or talked to them on the phone, and based on the information that I provided, they are saying you're okay. I mean, if I tell you I make X amount of money a year and my debts are so much, and sometimes they run a credit report.
And then you have those rules of thumb, that what it was at 25% of your income at one point or something like that.
All that is changing. I mean, there's so many financial programs out there right now that it's hard. But so they go through the formulas, whatever the bank might decide. Now, on a pre-approval, they actually verify your income, get your tax returns, you are ready to go. The only thing that needs to be done is appraise the house. That is a stronger position to be in.
Now you would take either, but you prefer, obviously.
Yeah.
Would it make a difference in whether you accepted?
If I have two offers that are exactly the same, and one is pre-qualified and one is pre-approved, I will go with the pre-approved.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, on the financial end, I mean, and like I said, they have to be exactly the same.
So you might as well go ahead and do.
Yeah, it costs money.
Aha.
Might cost you.
But if you're serious.
Right. Might cost you $250, but you might save a couple of $1,000s in the purchase price.
And
because it puts you in a stronger position. I mean, if you come to me and you're pre-approved, that means all the stuff from the bank that we have to wait a month is done. So we can close whenever we want to close. We just have to wait for the details to be worked out with the bank, but basically you are ready to go, and that's a stronger position.
What about land? I don't know if there have been changes in in the local community in terms of people having land right now that they're not really too happy to have because they're not sure they can build on it. Is it a good idea to buy land? Are there any land issues?
Many land issues.
Uh-huh.
Good land is hard to come by. When I'm talking about good land, means you can develop it eventually. If you're buying land in the outskirts where there's no utilities, make sure you have a well test so you can find water in the property. A perk test, so if you have to put a system, so you have to make sure that you check all the health department issues and the town approvals, because every town has a different size. If you're buying a big tract of land to try to develop it in multiple lots, you're talking 2 years down the road for approvals. So land can be a dangerous thing, and I would not recommend anybody buying it if they don't really know what they're doing.
Okay.
I seen too many people thinking they have a gold mine, and it's not. There's environmental issues. If you buy a piece of land where, especially, let's say in the town of Colonie, if we buy a piece of land that something was built there, because we know there's not much vacant land around here, there wasn't any environmental issues with the land before. Could have been oil tanks, buried oil tanks, could have been a dry cleaner. So you should do your research, be very aware of what is happening a lot. Actually, people are buying houses and turning them down to use the land to build a new house.
I see.
We had one that I was totally surprised right here in town. Actually, we have had about 5 or 6 that people come and buy them and turn it down because of the land.
And has this dropped off since the economy has changed a little bit in real estate, or is it still?
It still is. It's a way to go. If somebody wants to be in a certain location, but the house has become obsolete, then it's done that way.
Right. What should you offer? Obviously, the house itself is worth negative to you.
To you, but the market. I seen people pay market value for a house, and I didn't know what their plans were. But the week after, I drove by, and the house was gone.
Wow.
I was like, and they pay a lot of money. They paid market value for the particular structure that was there. I was surprised. But it's hard when you've been in the business so long that I probably have sold houses over the years a few times. So you remember when you sold it 22 years ago and when you sold 10 years ago.
Right.
It's whatever the people perceive value to be. Especially in the town of Colonie, people want to be here. There are certain streets that they are more popular than others, but overall, I think the school district and the whole package is good. So it's happening.
Are these the people who really know what they're doing, though? I think you're saying that don't go out and look for an old house that you're going to make an offer to put a new house.
You have to really know what you're doing. You have to know what your budget is.
Right.
If you're going to pay $150,000 to $200,000 for a house, basically for the land, know that your budget has to be able to afford that plus building the new house. And if you're paying $200,000, you're going to end up with probably about a $700,000-800,000 house to make it worthwhile.
Right. People may be interested in houses in other areas when they live here. Is that dropping off, or we've heard about things like flipping, and I'm not sure we're talking about that. I think that may be ending.
That's ended a while back. We have a lot of. In the last few years, we have had a lot of people coming from the West Coast, because we're cheaper than California or Chicago, or so they found an investment opportunity here. The flipping part it's a broad, word that is being used for a lot of things.
Okay. Overused?
Oh, way overused.
Okay.
The true meaning of flipping means you buy something from me, you put a little money, and you flip it. Basically, you stole it from me. You bought it from undervalue.
Oh, I see.
Nothing wrong with buying a home for a fair market value. Let's say a foreclosure. You buy it from the bank, needs a lot of work. You improve it, and then you sell it. That's not really flipping. The term is flipping, but what you have to be careful what you say and what you use. You are investing in real estate is very different than flipping real estate.
Okay.
I think we hear in Florida a lot of flipping. And the reason they were able to do that is because people were buying pre-construction. If you buy before, I mean, we don't have much new construction high rises here in the area, or at least I haven't seen them yet.
Right.
But a lot of investors were buying in the ground floor, and when the building was up 3 or 4 years later, they would be able to flip it.
Okay.
So I mean, there's all kinds. Flipping is people when they hear flipping, they go, "Ooh, I don't like it." But you know, it's not a bad thing. But it's overused.
We're almost out of time.
Sure.
Is there anything that we're missing?
The only suggestion I will have is stick to the professionals. People always say, well, I would like to sell it by owner because I will save the commission. If you get the right professional, you will make more money listing with a professional. It's like going to a doctor. You don't want to operate on yourself. You let the professionals do it. So I would be careful. Make sure, like I said before, make sure 2 things: how full-time and how much experience this person has, and how many deals have they done. Can they provide me any backups? And you know, if you stick to the professionals, you will do fine.
And I guess we want to wish everybody luck with their next sale or purchase.
And I will not worry about what you read in the papers. Take it and slice it in 4 and then use a 4th. I mean, this is national news. We're talking about the Capital District, or should I say Tech Valley?
It's like the old joke about what's a recession and what's a depression. When it happens to me, it's a depression. Right?
Yeah. When it happens to me, when it happens to you, I say it's a recession.
Right.
You know, we have an area that is growing. Our entire area is growing. We have tremendous amount of potential with AMD going in Saratoga County. I will not be overjoyous about it, but I will not be so depressed about it. We're in a normal market. This is what we all know as a normal market. So let's enjoy it and have fun with it.
Well, on that note, I guess we'll thank people for watching, and
Yes.
We thank you for watching, and we hope that you do tune in to our other programs and next week's version of Money Factor. Have a great day.
Thank you.